I'm Sarah and welcome back to my channel. So today I thought I'd share with you a really quick tutorial on how I hem circle skirts. So there's lots of different ways you can do it, but I've got a pretty easy and foolproof method that you can use. So I'm going to insert some clips so you can see what I do. So a few people have asked me how I hemmed my Paris dress, which you can see in my last video. And I've just recently made a new skirt, so it's a zinnia pattern by Colette Patterns. So I made a new version of that. So while I was doing that, I filmed a little tutorial for you. So just to show you close up so this is the main fabric. So it's just a narrow hem at 5/8 of an inch. And then the lining fabric I've lined again with bias binding, so it just matches the orange on the main skirt. So I just insert some clips that show you how I did that. So firstly I'm going to do a basting stitch. So I'm going to set my stitch length to 5 and I'm going to sew around the bottom of the hem at 5/8 of an inch. And that's just going to create a line that I can then press up. So you just need to make sure that you're consistently sewing at 5/8 of an inch from the bottom, and you're just going to use the seam guide on your machine to do that. So once you've sewn the line of basting stitches at the bottom of the seam allowance, here 5/8 of an inch, what you're going to do is then turn this up and then you're going to press. So you just make sure that you're folding just on that line there, and you're just going to press that all the way around, and then that's going to give you a consistent line. So just keep moving the skirt around for each section and then press up to that line. And once you're finished pressing, what you're going to do is you're going to fold over the bottom edge to meet that crease, and then you can just pin that into place. So you're doubling the hem over. And then what you can do is just pin all the way along. So just make sure that's meeting up to the crease. And then popping the pins in. One word of advice, because you'll be sewing this way around, so this is going to feed into the machine this way, it's best to put your pins so that they're facing the machine, so you can just take them out really easily. Okay, so now that's all pinned, what I'm going to do is then stitch the bottom of the hem. So firstly I'm just going to place the presser foot down with the presser foot right at the edge here, and then what I'm going to do is just bring my needle over. So I've got a stitch length of 2.8 just because it is a top stitch on the other side of the fabric. So I'm just going to move the needle over and just check that that will still catch. Yeah, so that's fine. So I'll get rid of this first pin and then I'm just going to sew with the edge of my presser foot along the edge of the fabric here, and that will create a nice neat line of top stitching on the other side. And I'll just carefully remove the pins as I'm going. And you just want to make sure that you're lined up with the presser foot, and also make sure that you're catching the edge of the fabric here. And once that's complete, you'll have the hem there. and you've still got the line of basting stitches, so we need to take those out. So you can just grab a seam ripper and just pull them out. It just takes a couple of minutes to do that, and then once that's done, just give it a press, and then you've got a nice smooth hem that's consistently turned up. So next up, I'm going to show you a different way of hemming a circle skirt. So because I've lined this skirt, I need to take the lining up by a little bit more than the skirt. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stitch a line similar to the way I did it before. So I'm going to stitch a line of basting stitches, and I'm actually going to do it at 3.5 centimetres from the bottom of the fabric. So what this will do is make sure that the lining hem is not visible from the outside of the garment. So similar to before, I'm just going to sew a line of basting stitches, so 5.0 stitch length, so that will show me where the edge of my hem is going to be. Okay, so once you're finished, then you've got a consistent line again round the bottom of the hem, and what I'm going to do in this instance is I'm actually going to trim to this line. Now I'm going to finish the lining hem is using bias trim. So what I need to do is just make sure I trim down the hem to this line. There is an alternate way of doing this. You could just mark from the bottom to the required length with a fabric marker or chalk. I actually just find that this way is quicker, just to use the sewing machine and just use the seam guide so that you know how far away you need to go, but it's completely personal preference. I'm just going to take my fabric scissors and just cut in here, making sure I don't snip any of the rest of the garment, but just cut up to that line all the way around. I'm also going to show you a really handy way of cutting the fabric. So sometimes it feels like you need 3 hands. Well, you can use your presser foot as an extra hand. So all I'm doing is just using that to hold the fabric in place while I grab my scissors, hold the fabric taut and cut along that line that I've just made. So it's just a really easy way of doing that. And then just reposition it again. So I've now got the cut edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the bias tape, and there should be one edge which is, if you fold it in half, one edge is slightly shorter than the other, so that's to go on the outside, because you want to make sure that you've caught it on the other side where you can't see. So if you just place that into the fold and place it right up against the fold, you should be fine. Now what you can do is go along and pin this all into place before you sew it. I'm just going to do that just to start myself off, and then I'm pretty much just going to freehand it. But I'll just show you this on the machine. Now I'm going to leave this beginning section just free and start here. So again, I'm going to line up with the edge of my foot so I can make sure I'm being consistent, and actually where the needle is falling at the moment is absolutely perfect. So as I said, I'm leaving sort of 1.5 inches there just free, so we can make sure that we can join it up the other end. And then I'm just sewing at a 2.8 stitch length, again because it's sort of top stitching, so it kind of needs to look good on the outside. So just make sure you're lining the edge of the fabric up with the fold, and you're lining up the folded edge here with your edge of your presser foot. Also make sure that you're catching the stitches there. And then once I've got started, I'm just going to place it into the fold and hold it with my fingers. and then you can just turn it over and make sure you're catching it. Now, if you annoyingly run out of bias tape like I have done, literally 2-3 inches short of the end of the hemline, then what you can do, you can either open this all up and stitch diagonally across, which I always find it always shifts out of place and never sits quite right. So what you can do is get your new piece of bias tape, fold the edge over. I've just cut a short length here because I don't need very much. Place that in the crease there, so sew to the end on the original piece, and then just line it up here. And this is on a, you know, on a skirt lining. It's not on the outside of the skirt, so I'm not really that worried about it being seen necessarily. And just line that piece up and carry on sewing. So there we go, that's the bias trim around the bottom of the skirt. So I'll show you what that looks like on shortly. Anyway, I hope you found that useful. Please let me know in the comments below how you like to hem things, and I'll speak to you soon. Thank you, bye bye.